How can delegation redefine leadership and team performance? We're going to dive into that specific topic in today's episode. My name is Z.
And I'm Rich. Today, we're excited to bring you some insights on what's sure to be an impactful episode today around delegation secrets for leadership success. Delegation isn't just assigning tasks. It's also a strategic skill in order to be able to facilitate and empower growth and empowerment.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. And again, this is an episode that we are going to specifically talk about in our theme around either new leaders into leadership or leaders who have been in leadership and maybe are going back into it once again. There is something for everybody in this episode. But I love the word empowerment because I was just looking at you right now and going, man, do you feel empowered with that mighty beard that you have growing there, sir?
Yeah, I took a chance. Now I'm empowered by the beard, I guess you could say.
It's funny because we were in a meeting the other day and then everybody was looking and they're like, wait, is that Z's double game? Like we're hanging around each other so much, we're morphing into each other.
There we go.
That's so creepy. But I love this topic, speaking of delegation, is that this is a topic and a common, I would say struggle for a lot of new leaders or leaders going back into it after a while because you're so focused on your work and delivering good results. And a lot of stuff is, maybe working on your own or doing it yourself, right? And trying to prove yourself. But once you're at that level, it changes completely because you cannot continue that route. As we all learn, even in leadership, it's going to backfire very quickly or you're going to learn quickly that you can't do it all yourself. And your team will not grow either, right? You're stagnating growth. So there's a lot that happens, but there's a lot of common questions or misconceptions or things that leaders say early enough or tell themselves that avoids them from delegating or makes it feel like it's an impossible task. As we're learning in a lot of our episodes, there's really nothing is impossible. You can work on it. You can improve on it. You have to shift that mindset, but it is truly possible. But speaking of, a guest today, we do have a guest, and we thought about, hey, who would be someone here at Insight that has a lot of functions, honestly. I think a lot of leaders do. They're dealing not only with internal teammates, but also now they're dealing with clients, external teammates, not only our clients, but also our partners. And who better than our very own Jeff Fine, who is an expert when it comes to our partner and management and alliance here at Insight, specifically managing the Intel account. So with that, Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No, of course. Thank you for joining. Thank you for saying yes, first of all.
Hey.
For those who don't know you outside of Insight, can you give us a little bit more about your role and what you do for us here?
Sure. I've been with Insight for coming up on 20 years. I've managed a lot of different teams within those years. A lot was on the sales side. I did that for about 12 years or so, and then it kind of took the leap over into the partner management side about 5 years ago, where I've managed a bunch of different partners. Had the beauty and the ability to kind of take on the Intel relationship, which has been absolutely fantastic for about a year and a half now. Got a fantastic team. The nice part is, like, every team that I've been a part of has been awesome. Like, I've really had the luxury of being a part of some really, really amazing teams, which has kind of helped me in my development as a leader. And hopefully, looking back at it, and the people that I've worked with or have worked for me have grown within that time.
Yeah. No, we were talking about earlier about now you're close to that double decade club then, right?
Double decade club. That's
coming
right.
up to it soon.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So let me go back a little bit more before we go into the questions. The thing that I love about, our leaders and our teammates here, they all have a story and a journey. You have quite a few years now with Insight. Tell us about your first role here at Insight and how has that transformed you until today? Like, how did that make you Jeff Fine, who is today?
So you want me to go all the way back, huh?
Yeah.
All the way back. I started as an account executive, right?
Yeah.
So I was dialing for dollars, went into a sales coaching role from there, which was kind of my first foray of, quote unquote leadership.
Yeah.
And really having to be helping others kind of deliver development. And then I got an opportunity to kind of go into an SMB manager. And I think that's where it really kind of started. The love of development, like, that's a big thing for me. I really enjoy watching people get bigger and stronger and continue to be successful. And I felt like that was one of the big leadership roles for me was, all right, what do I want to do? How do I want to get there? I can't do it without my team, and that's big.
And that's kind of what I wanted to bring that up, because again, your journey was not, hey, come on and you're going to manage a team. You're going to go right into this. You started as, hey, I'm here to prove myself. I want to develop a book of business. I want to learn the ropes. You probably had to work really hard and really prove yourself. But then once you got to that next level, you're like, okay, this is different. It's a different type of approach, and really found the value of development, right?
It is a mindset shift for sure.
A lot of mistakes, I imagine, learned along the way.
Oh, absolutely. If you go from an individual contributor to a leader, and it's a lot different.
It is a lot different. Yeah.
But it's awesome.
Now, another quick question is, like, when you joined Insight, was this like your first like corporate job out of college, or did you kind of work for previous organizations leading up to
I did work for a couple of previous organizations when I first got out of college, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was kind of moving around, did some outside sales stuff, but then kind of found this organization through a friend of mine that joined the company a few years earlier.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I regret every minute not coming over when he did. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I should have let you finish your sentence. Like, what?
Going the other way with that.
Yeah, I regretted every day of my life.
Nope. The other way around.
No, that's good.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah, real quick, another common thing we're noticing is that development, right?
Yeah.
That, once you get into that leadership role or position, it's that loving to develop others, that love for that.
yeah, and I think it does help though, right? And let's talk about this real quick before we go into the next few questions, is that if you're join a leader who doesn't value that and doesn't give you that, it's going to be hard for you to transition into that role and learn the hard way. But if you have a leader who really embodies that, who gives you that, who openly talks about it and gives you the opportunities, you see the value and you want to pay it forward to your team, right?
Yeah.
So here's the outline. Here's what we're going to discuss today. First of all, what's the foundation or the set the stone about what delegation is? Second, how do we inspire commitment? Because there's going to be some pushback. I think we all been there. I don't have time. This is too much. I'm overwhelmed. I don't, whatever excuses we make or whatever we say, or even more importantly, people start to think like you're punting on the work on me, right? And the last one is encourage growth. How does this encourage growth in the long end? So we'll start with the first one, Jeff. How do you start off when you're in the leadership role and you're in this new mindset now that you can't do it all yourself? How do you create that clarity initially with your team when you start to delegate? Because as soon as you tell somebody to do something, they're going to be thinking, you don't want to do it, you're giving me the work. How do you set the tone and create that clarity with your team in the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about communication, right? I mean, we definitely need to make sure that they understand the vision, they understand the clarity of what we're trying to get accomplished as a team, and then you really need to determine the why, right? It's really important for them to understand why we're doing this, why I'm asking or why somebody else is asking us to go do the things that we need to do, and then for me as a leader, it's important that I'm determining what is the right things to delegate, right? I mean, going back to what you said earlier in regards to kind of starting out and going from that individual contributor to a leadership role, you learn that very quickly, like you can't do it all by yourself, right? But you want to, because it's, sometimes it's quote unquote easier, right? Let me just get it done. But when the most successful leaders are the ones that are be able to delegate the right activities, right? So that you can go do the other stuff to make sure that we all kind of meet back at the end and then we have a successful project or whatever it is we're working on, right? So it's very much a why led
communication.
Activity. Yep, for sure.
Yeah. And to that point, how do you ensure your team, understands and embraces that bigger picture of the tasks that they have, how it all incorporates itself?
Collaboration. Yeah, I mean, it always is going to come back to that communication, making sure that you're putting the message out there in front of everybody so that you have everybody rowing in the same direction, right? A team's only as good as our weakest link. So for me, going back to the development discussion earlier, was I want to make sure that we're giving everybody the right stuff and making sure that you look at the team and say, all right, where's the strengths of the team? And really try to figure out how to leverage those. Because sometimes, you might have to delegate something that could be easy to do, but if somebody's really good at it, would it be done more successful?
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, you're already adding that layer of complexity, right? The first part is doing it, right? Is understanding I can't do it alone. Yep. I have a team. Let's go ahead and work together. You said collaboration. The why is it can vary, but it ultimately is, hey, we have a goal as a team, and in order for us to get there, we need to all pitch in and do what we need to do, right? And get involved and participate in the process to get us to that goal. Then the next layer that I just heard you say is, now as a leader, we have to be strategic of who we delegate or what we delegate to who, right? Because here, and this is true, and I want to be real in these podcasts, right? Is that a lot of times what I'm hearing, especially in today's work environment, is that people are seeing that when we delegate something, when we assign somebody to somebody, but we keep going to that person over and over again, they're going to stop working hard and going, hey, I'm getting rewarded for all this great work that I'm doing, but I feel like I'm getting punished because I keep coming to me and nobody else is getting these opportunities. So we have to be mindful as leaders to be careful with always going to our, A performers or our, top performers or whatever you want to call it, because it could be demotivating if we keep doing that for everybody in the team. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because I hear that quite a bit happening in various different aspects.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to be careful with that, right? I mean, because you're going to go to the person that you trust the most, right? And that tends to be what happens. But you also want to make sure that you're not overloading, right? It's important that they see it as it's a development, it's a skill. What are we trying to do? Why am I delegating this, right? Because I'm trying to make you better at this, or I'm trying to get more of that, right? You definitely got to kind of walk on that fine line just to make sure that you don't overload the person, because it's easy to do. It's really easy to do. So you want to make sure that you're being cautious of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually leads itself to our next topic. Commitment and motivation, right? Like, how do you inspire that commitment within your team, and how do you make sure you're assigning tasks that align with somebody's motivation? How do you do that effectively?
I mean, it goes back to the connection meetings that we have, right? I mean, we've got to make sure that we're talking to our team, right? I want to make sure that I have got that one-on-one bond with my group. It's important. I've done it all my career. Is one of I've always been kind of known as that player's coach, right? I really love having fun. I think that we get the most out of people when we're enjoying what we're doing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, while I'm trying to make sure that that's the environment that we have, I want to understand where the strengths and weaknesses of the team are. Because if I get the opportunity to build my own team where I get to hire, I want to make sure that I can have everybody has a different flavor, right? I don't need all of the same team of everybody that can do the same thing, right? I need the more we'll get better. We'll get better as a team.
Yeah.
If we have everybody kind of owning a different piece of it.
Yeah, different strengths, leveraging those strengths. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the connection process, because just for those who are listening to us and don't know what that is, I mean, you probably have an idea by the name, but that's the term that we use for our one-on-ones. But also, it's the term that we use for our, let's say, performance. I don't say performance management, but our way that we measure performance with our team regarding, instead of doing annual reviews or by yearly reviews, our connection meetings are those opportunities that we talk to our teammates and talk about how they're doing in their tasks or goals, right? But also their development. Are you getting development that you need? What do you want to work on? Where do you see yourself in the future? And then, of course, from there, I also just talk about what are some things that can help you overcome our challenges, right? There's so much that happens in that connection meeting, but it's not just a typical one-on-one. How are you doing? Good. Anything you need? No, I'm okay, bye. I see that happening in some of those, right? But it's really just diving deep, and you're really connecting with them. A call back to a word that you said earlier is, if a leader only goes to that one teammate that they trust because they can trust them doing the work, why don't you trust your other teammates? What's going on there? And how can you start building that trust with them, right? And guess what? The connection meeting is a great place to do it. And I mean, what is that? What are your thoughts on that regarding using the connection meetings or regarding building that trust?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge, right? I mean, that's where we're going to get that one-on-one time.
Yeah.
I like to have a lot of calls and a lot of meetings with my team as well. I mean, obviously, within reason, of course.
Of course.
But we want to make sure that they're together. You have that bigger group first versus the one-on-one time, right? I think there's a lot more open dialogue you can have on a one-on-one versus a larger audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you also mentioned, leveraging the strengths of your team. So I would imagine in those connection meetings, you're kind of getting to know that person and
Yep.
what really, they thrive on or what motivates them or get them energized. That's probably the biggest thing I would imagine. And I'd like to hear from your perspective of how you can keep them motivated and how you delegate those tasks.
That's crucial for me, right? I think it's important to quickly identify what those strengths and weaknesses are, and then be able to kind of leverage it, whether it's a development plan for the weaknesses or taking advantage of the strengths. I really enjoy bringing the team together and having them kind of lead a piece of it, right? Whether it's I'm delegating the ownership of this project or this training or whatever the case may be, so that they can leverage their strength in front of the whole crew, right? It's important for that we're all rowing in the same direction, the boat's going in the same flow, so we learn from each other, and it also is going to help us collaborate and bring up new ideas, which is what we always are looking for.
Yeah, I like that you said too, that is identify it sooner than later, right? The sooner you can identify that, now what to target, what to consider when an opportunity comes up. And then even having those backup plans. I think we forget a lot of times as leaders that, if we delegate one task to somebody and that's all that's all we go to, what about that one time that they're sick or they move on to a new role or whatever? Now you got to train somebody from the beginning, ramp them up. And it does take time. And what I want to touch that as well is excuse that we give ourselves is like, I'd rather do it myself, or I'd rather have Rich do it because we get it quick. If I'll take time to develop, somebody's going to take time and whatever. Well, if you don't develop that bench or develop that it's going to make it more. Have you experienced that before? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that it runs through my mind a lot, right? I'm always looking for who's going to replace me. It sounds kind of weird, but if I'm going to move up or if I'm going to go in a different direction, whatever the case may be, wherever the world takes me, is I want to make sure that my bench is being developed. I want to know who the next person up is. That we're doing a lot of cross training. We try to do that as much as we can, so we can have the go-tos. It doesn't have to just be me, or it doesn't have to be just one member of my team. It's definitely, we can go to anybody and kind of get the same answer.
Yeah, I mean, I love the cross-train, developing everybody's skills. For again, not necessarily they may end up taking a role, but they can go to a different role that they can take those skills and apply them for something else.
Yep.
The analogy you used about coaching, man, I see. I always picture this when it comes to delegating as well, is that the best coaches in any sport, isn't it? Don't you find it interesting when an up-and-coming new coach gets hired into a team, first time they coach, but they say, hey, you're part of this school, the Lombardi school or the, whatever, Ditka school. I mean, there's lists and lists, right? It's so cool that it's like there's this philosophy or this kind of, hey, they've been effective. They know what they're doing. They've been well trained. That they will be a great addition to have us, lead our next team to the next championship.
It's the coaching tree, right? I mean, that we've all probably had leaders that we've enjoyed and we've learned a ton from, and there's others that maybe didn't connect. Mm-hmm. I definitely try to be the one that I connect well with everybody.
Yeah.
And that's my ultimate goal. It doesn't always happen, over the years. I'm sure there's somebody out there that says, oh, he was terrible. But I strive to be the best, the best person I can be for my team. Because it's not about me. It's not about us as leaders. It's about the team, right? I mean, it's the better the team is, everything else comes with it.
And it's like you knew the next question was coming, man, because we're not perfect as leaders, man. We're going to make mistakes. There are going to be some situations where we didn't connect well with somebody, or maybe looking back, there could have been some other stuff we could have done, right? But it's that constant learning. So I think the follow-up question is, how do you yourself, I know that you're learning from imperfections or, from mistakes, but how do you encourage your team to learn through those? Because when you delegate them a task, let's be honest, it's our first time doing it. There are going to be some mistakes along the way, some hiccups. Like, how do you navigate or encourage your team through those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is to make sure that your instructions are well laid out, right? I mean, if once you've delegated that task, whatever it may be, and you're giving them the right path and the right instructions as to what we need to do to be successful, doesn't always mean you will be. So I try to push everybody that I've been a part of to stretch yourself, right? you learn from those mistakes. Like that's crucial. If you don't making the mistakes, you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, right? I think to me, it's really important that we go and stretch out. Now, we don't want to make huge, crucial mistakes, but it's all relative, right? We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make the right leaps and balances to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you're fostering that learning and that innovative culture like very effectively with that, allowing them the freedom and the autonomy to, maybe make some mistakes here, but like kind of slowly guide them, where you want to get them to be.
Everybody learns different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you gotta figure out how everybody kind of learns. The easiest way for me is to, all right, let's give the length of the rope as long as I can, right? And let's kind of figure out where everybody's stopgap is.
Let's talk that too, because again, some leaders are listening to this and going, okay, that sounds great and all, but how do I know? Because, again, that's the reason why I'm afraid to delegate, is I'm afraid to delegate something because if it goes horribly wrong, it can be a loss of a lot of money or whatever, right? The risk is pretty high. Well, there's good news, right? Don't delegate that to the new person, right? Have some, have them earn it, like build it up. Don't just be like, hey, Rich, guess what? I'm going to put you in charge of a $1 billion account. You never dealt with them before. Good luck, right? You're just like, okay.
I'm on it.
I'm going to make it double $2 billion, right?
I mean, keep in mind progress checks, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the key to prevent the massive mistake or even making mistakes, right? If you're checking periodically throughout the process, so you kind of see where we're at, you kind of still have that your thumb on the pulse.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a big one as well. And another one too is that, don't start having them build that trust with you, right? So you want to start delegating some easier tasks or tasks that are a little more easier to accomplish, not higher risk, but they've proven that. And you know what? They've done that already. They shouldn't. Now I'm more comfortable offering this next tier of responsibility, right? And then to your point is those constant reports, because there could be a time where maybe you assume that they got this, they've done it. But maybe they haven't, or they're overwhelmed, or they're, dealing. We talk about VUCA a lot of times. Something that's really complex, ambiguous, uncertain. That they're like stuck, and maybe they're not coming to you. Whatever, you have to check in, and be like, "Are you good? Like, how are we doing? I noticed that I haven't got an update yet. What's going on? Like, well, the manager's pushing back, or the teammate, the account isn't responding. All right, what can we do? What can I do to help out? Right? So. What about for yourself, Jeff? At this stage, you've been in your role, you've been in leadership for some time now. What are some things that you're still working on in your development, and things that are stretching you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still learning a lot. I'm far from where I want to be, for sure. I continue to try to push myself to be a better communicator, right? I think that's still something that, as much as I try really hard to do, I think it's definitely one that I continue to get better at. I'm really trying to lean on my leadership to learn, like, where can I get mentor, mentee type of relationships to better understand what I can do better. One of my things, just from a leadership perspective, is pounding my own chest sometimes is hard. It's not something that I'm used to doing. And to be honest, I'm not even comfortable doing it. I just let the actions kind of speak for themselves. The results do.
Yeah.
But that's definitely one that I'm continuing. And that's been a long-term try to fix for me, is to continue to get better at that.
Because of that episode, right, of balancing confidence and humility.
Yeah. You have to take the small wins. It can't just be negative. It's got to be like, oh, hey, I did do a good job. Go back to that.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like as you're listening, you're like, I'm not alone, dude. You're seeing this. A lot of us kind of deal with that, and that's again a good sign that you want others to get. You want to give the credit. You want to share it abundantly. But dude, what's going to motivate you? What's going to build that fire inside of you? What's going to have you constantly seeking out new opportunities, finding a next level mentor, someone that you want to learn from? It's like it doesn't hold you back. It allows you to kind of show, and plus it tells others what you're good at, because a lot of times people won't see it unless you share it. I love that you shared that, because I think that goes back to this as well, is with those teammates that are struggling with the task or what have you. If you by sharing that and being open and transparent and vulnerable, it lets them know, like, hey, you know what? I need to do that too. Like, I have a hard time pounding my chest sometimes, and
Yeah, absolutely. And as we wrap up here, we want to thank Jeff Fine so much for sharing all of your insight with us. It's definitely been an abundance of knowledge. Any last thoughts for you?
No, I mean, go to Jeff. Jeff, any other final thoughts or anything that we maybe didn't cover that you would like to tools, best practices for other leaders that are up and coming or moving into a role?
I mean, I think the one thing I'd probably leave everybody with is just reach out. Don't be afraid to go and seek help from others, right? Nobody's at this alone, whether it's your leadership, whether it's even outside of your org, just to get another person's perspective of whatever it is that you're doing. The more you communicate, the more you're open with others. I think they'll be more open with you. And I think that's going to help drive better leadership. At least that's the way I look at it.
That is like a sneak peek for one of our upcoming episodes of like finding your own board of directors.
Yeah.
Right. Your sounding boards. Those folks that you trust that can help you if you are stuck. Right. If you need help or what have you. Love that. Nice closing of that. And that applies to everybody, right? You don't have to be in a manager role to have that. You can have your own board of directors. You have a colleague. You can have a peer, whatever that is, to help you in those tough times to say, dude, I'm stuck. Especially if you're going into a newer leadership role. I mean, that is going to be so important for you to be successful, because if you're not, you're going to learn the hard way and make a lot more mistakes. And of course, you'll see the results will kind of show themselves.
Yeah.
So for me, final thoughts is, again, I think that when it comes to delegation, understanding, it is difficult, but understand that you have to do it in order to be successful, in order to deliver results. Another thing too is that, yes, if it's going to take more time for you to train somebody than you doing yourself, long term, think of it like an investment. If I invest this time now, these couple hours every week, every other day, long term, they will then take on that task responsibility that will free you up time to do other more important things, which is your connection meetings and building and developing your team, your business. So think of it as an investment long term. So what were your highlights or your takeaway?
Yeah, just that pays out the dividends. You got to put it in the work, and then you reap the fruits. I think I align a lot with Jeff's philosophy. Developing your team. You want to have a team of all-stars, right? No matter if it's the A squad that's out there playing, it doesn't matter. You got everybody on the bench. You can just swap them out. Still the A squad, still able to perform, things like that. So.
Oh gosh, don't even talk with like analogies of sports, right? Because we can go into. I mean, one thing I like to highlight, like Jeff, right? He has, he's proud of his kids and all that. He's got a kid playing hockey right now. I can imagine he's just like constantly like seeing these things and understanding. Are you a hockey fan or before this or?
Yeah, not as much as I am now.
I was going to say you probably a lot more.
Yeah, no,
and I think of all the sports, they're constantly changing lines. And it's like when you have just one group that's enough, but the other ones aren't so strong, you're not developing them. Like, once they get off the ice, they're gonna get destroyed on there, right, on the ice. They're like, we're down by 500 points. How do we catch up now? All right. Exactly. So with that, thank you for joining us in this episode. Hopefully, you got a lot of good insights into delegation. This is gonna hopefully take you a step further in saying, hey, it's a learning progress. It's a learning curve. You're not alone. But you can definitely seek out the help. You can develop those A squad, and you can actually start performing sooner than later in your achieving your goals.
And if you liked our content, be sure to share it with a friend. Like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications for more leadership insights. Until next time.